morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, May 25th, 2016. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Steve Helwagen. Steve, we're going to talk some position battles on the show today. We're also going to talk about your book, but let's start with the position battles. I have 4 written down in particular. Corner, the guard opposite Billy Price, running back, and who will be the 2 starting wide receivers. Let's start with corner. Denzel Ward or Marshon Lattimore? Who's going to be the guy opposite Gareon Conley, Steve?
Man, that is a good one. I'm going to say Denzel Ward. He just seemed to me to be very consistent. He was available. He was out there quite a bit, I guess, during the spring. You know, there's a lot of guys at that spot. But Lattimore, he's a good player as well. And I think in the times he got in the games last year, he did pretty well. But he's just had so many health issues in the time that he's been there that you just never know whether you're going to be able to count on him. I know Damon Arnett is also in that mix, a redshirt freshman, and Joshua Norwood as well. And then you got some incoming guys that are going to come in and try and mix things up as well. But no, I think I'm going to go with Ward first, with Lattimore right there behind him, and if something were to happen, I think Lattimore would play. But, I think they're both good players, and I'm just, again, you go from Eli Apple, who was the number 10 pick in the NFL draft, to guys who haven't played a whole lot, and Gareon Conley, he has to kind of emerge now and be that number 1 guy and really eliminate the other team's top wide receiver, and you hope after some of the issues he's been through, primarily the year before, but he played pretty well last year, that he's ready to be that lead corner, and then you'll have Ward or Lattimore probably stepping in at the other side.
I agree with you. I do think Denzel Ward will be the starter. It'll be a good battle, and I'm not ruling out Marshon Lattimore, but even if Marshon Lattimore stays healthy, I think Denzel Ward's going to beat him out. I think a lot of people think, well, if Lattimore's healthy, he'll win the job. If not, it'll be Ward. I think people, not everyone, but I think some people sell Denzel Ward short because of his recruiting ranking. He wasn't like this, uber prospect like Marshon Lattimore was coming out of high school, but Denzel Ward, fastest guy on the team, and you watch him play. I mean, he had probably the biggest hit in the whole spring game. I know his spring game was one of 15 practices in the spring, but I'm just impressed with the young man. I thought the little bit he played on special teams last year as a true freshman, he looked good. So I'm with you, Steve. I think Denzel Ward will edge out Marshon Lattimore to be the starting corner opposite Gareon Conley. All right, starting guard opposite Billy Price. There's several candidates here. The 2 main ones seem to be Demetrius Knox or Michael Jordan, but Matt Burrells could end up being in the mix. Malcolm Pridgeon could end up being in the mix if he's not the right tackle. He could slide the right guard, or if Malcolm Pridgeon is the right tackle, maybe Isaiah Prince could slide the right guard. How do you see this shaking out? Who will be the starting guard opposite Billy Price?
I'm going to do Michael Jordan. I just think he had such a buzz going on there in the spring, and the coaches just, he lit them up. I mean, whenever he got in there, he really played well there at guard. So I think that it sounds like it's his job to lose going into the preseason camp, and it'll be, obviously he was an early enrolling freshman and has, never been through a preseason camp. So that's what kind of lays out for him, is can he be the guy on a day in and day out basis when you got a guy like Demetrius Knox, Big Meech, as we like to refer to him, those of us who know him personally, a sophomore, 6'4", 305 pounds, and he's hungry to play as well. Matthew Burrell, to me, he was one of the top offensive linemen in the country coming out last year. He's a redshirt freshman. He's also hungry. So you're going to have some guys who all want to eat. And, who's going to come out of that? I think Pridgeon's first position is going to be tackle. And then they would, if he doesn't win one of the tackle spots, then they might slide him over to guard and see how he's going to do. He's humongous. He's like 6'8", 320, something like that. So, he could help them somewhere. You just don't know yet where. And Dave, to me, what's great is the way that they've recruited. They lose a guy like Grant Schmidt, who just transferred to Cincinnati. You still have 14 or 15 offensive linemen on scholarship for the upcoming season. So even if there's an injury, the one player who would probably be who you couldn't lose is Pat Elflein, who's going to play the center position. But beyond that, if any of the other starters were to get hurt, you probably got somebody there who can fill right in without too much difficulty at the other 4 spots. And I think that is they've gone from when, Meyer first got there with Ed Warner not having 5 guys that they could count on, to now having somewhere between 5 and 8 or 9 that you could probably plug in there with another 6 or 7, on the rise. I kind of like the way that Ed Warner, in particular, rebuilt the depth there on the offensive line.
That's a great point. The days of taking just one offensive lineman in a recruiting class, that being Evan Blankenship.
That Evan Blankenship class.
I
knew you were going to reference that.
Yeah, exactly. That's my go-to of the Bowman era. They get just one offensive lineman in the class, and it's a low 3-star, Evan Blankenship, who never played. So good job there.
Passing up Taylor Decker, who became a first-round NFL draft pick.
Right, and the previous year taking guys like, Tommy Brown and Antonio Underwood and Chris Carter and that whole group, Brian Bobeck. I mean, the one year they took a bunch of guys was a bunch of guys that weren't any good. What's interesting in the early Tressel, we're getting off on a tangent here, the early Tressel years, they recruited well in the offensive line. They came in, they got Nick Mangold and Rob Sims in that 2002 recruiting class, which was the best recruiting class of the, Tressel era, and they just, for some reason, they just didn't build the depth there. And you make a good point. Meyer and company, they're signing 5 offensive linemen a year, and then you lose a guy like Grant Schmidt, it's like, well, nothing happened. He wasn't going to play here, and you just move on to the next guy. And to give my take on guard opposite Billy Price, I don't have a strong feeling about this one. I'm going to go with Demetrius Knox just because almost as a default, because he's 2 years older than Michael Jordan. I am still not ready to pencil in a true freshman, but, man, that would be a fun storyline. And what a cool name, too, Michael Jordan, and then for him to be playing as a true freshman, that would be a big-time story. We'll see if it transpires. All right, last couple position battles. Let's switch gears to running back. Mike Weber, Breonte Dunn, Mike Curtis Samuel factor in the mix at running back, maybe Antonio Williams. Who's going to be the starting running back?
I'm going to go Mike Weber. He was there during the spring and answered the call, was there through the spring game. Breonte Dunn, I don't know if he was injured or what the situation was. Sometimes with 50-year guys, they don't even, dress them for the spring game because they just figure, we've had you on our team for 4 years. We know what you can do. There's no reason for you to risk an injury, in a meaningless spring game. And we really do need to see what Michael Weber and Antonio Williams can do. So that's kind of the way that played out in my mind. Maybe he did have a nagging injury of some sort. Breonte Dunn, to me, when he's been given the chance, either in scrimmages we've attended or games, had a reputation of a bit of a fumbler, and he was behind pretty good players, Carlos Hyde and Ezekiel Elliott, and he is dying to get his chance to be the guy, kind of like Raymond Harris in '93. I mean, he finally got the chance to step out of Robert Smith's shadow, and he really came up big. And I think that Dunn could be that guy if he gets the chance. But I just think Weber, there's so much that he does, and he just seems like he's a special player. 5'10", 215, a low center of gravity, great footwork, great vision. Great cutting. I mean, he just seems to have everything you want. He's not Ezekiel Elliott, where he's going to break tackles and these kind of things, but you hope that the trade-off is that he may be just a smidge of a step faster, can hit the hole, and you don't want to get any of these guys beat up. I think that it'll probably share the load. The formula I keep coming back to is Weber for 20, Dunn for 10, and Barrett, keep him just 10. And I know, Steve, that's crazy talk because he ran it over 20 times against Michigan and Notre Dame in those 2 wins, those great victories that everyone's holding their hat on at the end of the year. To me, it's too much for him, and I think that he'll get banged up again if they do that. So they really do need Weber. They need Dunn. Antonio Williams is going to fill in, and I think Curtis Samuel is still back there as well if need be.
Barrett's only going to get 10 carries a game against Bowling Green,
right.
And Tulsa, and Indiana, and Rutgers.
And 28 against Oklahoma.
Exactly. Right. He'll approach approached 30 against Oklahoma. But, they'll limit his carries on some of those other games. Curtis Samuel, to me, is going to be a huge part of this offense. Looks like he's going to be the hybrid. So I'm going to agree with you. I think Mike Weber will be the starting running back. We had Beanie Wells on this show exactly a week ago. The running back fraternity over at Ohio State is pretty strong. These guys know a little bit about the position and what's going to happen. They stick together, and Beanie thinks it'll be Weber. He thinks Weber, his quote was, he thinks Mike Weber will be a phenomenal running back. He said he can run between the tackles, but he also can hit the home run. Not, just like you said, he's not going to be Zeke. But we're not going to see Zeke for a long time. He's like a once-in-a-generation type player. We're not going to see a guy at Ohio State that's going to be the number 4 overall pick of the draft from the running back position, I think, in a very, very, very long time. But Mike Weber can be outstanding, so I agree with you on that. Okay, final position battle. Who will be the 2 starting wide receivers? It's a deep pool to pick from. Let's take the H-backs out of it. Just the 2 true wide receiver positions. Who will be the starters, Steve?
Oh, man. Now, I think we're going to go Noah Brown with one of them if he's healthy. 6'2", 222-pound sophomore. Missed last season, obviously, because of the injury he suffered in preseason camp. He was all set to be a starter. You know, the other one depends, you know, what you think. Corey Smith, possibly. Paris Campbell. Terry McLaurin did very well, I thought, in the spring game. I thought McLaurin and Campbell both stepped it up. So, you know, you also have the younger guys, the true freshmen, Austin Mack, and the redshirt freshman, Torrance Gibson, who are in this mix as well. So there's your top 6 or 7 right there, in my opinion. And that doesn't even include KJ Hill, who redshirted last year. He might be in that mix, and I'm sure I'm leaving out the Johnny Dixons and the other guy who's always hurt. I don't know. I've forgotten the other guy, but at any rate, I don't have my list in front of me to cheat off of, but I'm just going off the top of my head. I'm going to say Noah Brown at 1 and Terry McLaurin maybe at the other. Paris Campbell did get to start a game last year, the Virginia Tech game, when Jalen Marshall and some of the fellows weren't along for the ride on that one, but you know, whoever it is, I mean, Curtis Samuel is the leading returning receiver with 22 catches. So whoever it is, unproven, and need to show the world that they can run routes, block, get open, make tough catches, score touchdowns, and that's a checklist right there for those guys as they go into this and get deep and get open and make plays. I mean, that's enough screwing around with Zone 6. It's time to get back to making plays.
Yeah, it's a tough one here. I think it's going to be Noah Brown and Corey Smith. The problem is my projected starting wide receivers are both coming back from broken legs. Now, at least they're not coming back from a torn ACL, and both guys are supposed to be 100%. In fact, I think Noah Brown's pretty close to 100% now. His injury happened back in August, so he's pretty close to 100%. Corey Smith was during the season at the Indiana game. If it was one game later, he would not have been eligible for a 6th year, and I don't think Urban Meyer would want him back for a 6th year unless he thought he was starting material. So I'll go with Noah Brown and Corey Smith, but a lot of guys are going to play, as you hit on. I think the stat's very high on Paris Campbell. I think the fans saw him not play well against Virginia Tech last year in the game you mentioned that he started. But the fact that he was a starter as a redshirt freshman, I know they had some guys suspended. That tells you a lot right there about how the staff feels about him. And I thought he looked really good in the spring. I think Paris Campbell's a guy that's going to move around. He's going to play some H, play some wide receiver. So, if he's not a starter, I think he's going to play a lot. And, Torrance Gibson's going to play. Austin Mack's going to play. KJ Hill's going to play. And then probably Terry McLaurin is the other guy maybe would put in the rotation. I think James Clark, even though he had a pretty good spring, he didn't finish the spring very well. I heard he was in the doghouse to finish spring. And then Johnny Dixon, I'm just not convinced he's ever going to stay healthy. I hope I'm wrong. All kinds of talent, but just those knees. He has problems in both knees, a lot like how Marshon Lattimore has problems in both hamstrings, but those guys just have chronic injuries. So, short story long, I'll go with Noah Brown and Corey Smith as the starters, but a lot of guys are going to play, and it won't surprise me to see them, switch up the starting lineup as they go into the season. Okay, Steve.
The drama with Zone 6 will continue. Here we go.
That's right. Yeah, Zach Smith, Zone 6, has his work cut out for him. Well, plenty of talent, that's for sure. Your book is just outstanding. Talk a little bit about your book, Undisputed Champions, how Ohio State and Urban Meyer won the first ever college football playoff national championship. So talk a little bit about it for those that don't know. A lot of listeners probably already know about it. And then tell the listeners where they can purchase your fine book, Steve.
Definitely. It did come out last July, but we still have plenty of copies available, and I think I have not had one negative comment. I posted a story on our site with testimonials from people who have received the book and read it, and I just think that there is something there that people who love Ohio State, I think that this is something that they won't regret having in their collection. I just think it's a really positive portrayal of what happened and really the whole story, in my mind, of how they won the national championship. And it was a thrilling season and, everything that went with it. I think it was just, a great testimony to perseverance as much as anything. And a lot of personal, battles, were fought during the course of that season. And I just think that, it's a great chronicle, I guess, of everything that happened, and we still have plenty of copies of this book available. You can go on our site and type in a search for Undisputed Champions, or go to eBay where you can purchase it online and just type in a search for Undisputed Champions, and the information to purchase it will come right up. It's $19.95 plus $3 shipping. Or if you want to buy multiple copies to give to aunts, third uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters, daughters, whoever, we will do 5 copies for $90. You have to send us a check to be able to do that, though. So, yep, all the information is there on Bucknuts. Just go up to the search engine, type in Undisputed Champions, and same with eBay. If you want to just purchase one copy, go there and do it that way. And I think you will not be disappointed one bit.
You definitely will not be disappointed. I've read it twice. It's a fantastic book. And as you mentioned, you have to take care of those third uncles, as you mentioned there.
Yeah.
That's one of Urban Meyer's favorite phrases when he's talking about people who call him about, lack of playing time for their family members. He refers to them as third uncles. It cracks me up every time. Well, great stuff out of Steve Helwagen. Go ahead.
I was told Daniel Giddens got some bad advice from one of his third uncles that told him that he needed to be a pick and pop foreman. And I'm like, I've never seen the guy make a shot outside 4 feet, so how is he supposed to make one from 20? I'm confused. But yeah, the third uncle really messed him up. So we'll see how he does at Alabama.
The third uncle now has him at Basketball Powerhouse, Alabama. So
yeah,
the third uncle knows what he's doing there. They're coached by Avery Johnson. I think that's a great hire by Alabama, but still not exactly what's interesting about Giddens, he goes from one football school to another. I mean, now at least Ohio State has a good basketball program and a good history of basketball, whereas Alabama does not. But we'll see what happens. Great stuff as always out of my man Steve Helwagen. Thank you, Steve, and thank you to the listeners out there. Hope everyone has a great day. Let's hear some Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.